All right, so this is our True North Caricature Carvers Zoom meeting for November 17th, if you can believe it. Gonna have to start our Christmas shopping soon, I think. John Paul's not going to be able to attend with us tonight. I don't know. He's just having trouble, I think, setting his priorities right. He's going out with his wife to a dinner theater instead of sitting with us to talk about carving. We'll have to talk to him about that. If anybody wants to say anything bitter about John, tonight's Zoom call is the time to do that so that he's able to see it on YouTube later. At tonight's going to be a really good discussion. I've really been looking forward to that because we have three people, as you know, are going to lead the discussion on a variety of different things, and I think it's going to be really worthwhile because each of these three individuals, we'll get into it in a minute, have all tried something a little bit differently than they've done in the past, and I'm sure they've learned some positive things and some negative things about it, and that's what we're here to do, is just share those kinds of things so that we all learn from it. So Lee Baldwin is going to talk about a project that he's been working on, and what's really he feels has pushed him ahead is the use of the wood burner. And so we've talked about in the past for a little bit more definition on a carving to use a wood burner. Certainly, before you do some painting, wood burning is a really good way to make sure one color doesn't bleed into another. So Lee's going to talk a little bit about that. Baz started to do some work on a carving and decided to start that by doing a clay sculpture. And so he's going to take us through, how in fact he resourced that, referenced that, and building of an armature, building up of the clay model, the whole 9 yards. So that's going to be great. Furtis went out and got himself some new sharpening tools and bought a stropping belt sander and modified it to some extent to take a leather strop. And so he's going to talk a little bit about that as well. But we're going to, so thanks Lee, Baz, and Furtis for offering that. I hope that this is the start of something we see a lot of, people just finding an opportunity to talk about a particular project or a tip, if you want, that they want to share with the group and need more than just a few minutes. And so we're going to give Lee and Baz and Furtis the time they need to talk about those three things. It is a discussion. So, although Lee and Baz and Furtis both sent me some photos to put on the slide deck here that they'll speak to, it's not a presentation. So chip in by coming off of mute and asking a question or offering your point of view on that topic, okay? And we'll make it a good discussion tonight. Okay, folks, so just a reminder, relying on you all to participate in the conversation. If you would make sure that you're all on mute until you do, in fact, have something to say about the participation, that'd be terrific. Okay. We're going to start by just open for any general questions or comments. We're going to get into the current individual projects and give you a few minutes to talk about what's on your project desk right now. But if there are any general questions and comments, now's the time to just raise those. Anybody have anything? Okay, well, let's take a minute and start then by just talking about what you have on your work table right now and what you'd like to share with the group.
Me?
Hey Lee, I've got a full session for you with all your photos, but I was just going to give people an opportunity to hold up what they might have to the camera or just talk about it before we get into those.
Okay, I'll jump in here. I got one on the table.
Okay.
When I got the notice of this night's meeting, I was just starting to think about painting my latest project, another South Shore redneck. So anyway, I stopped right there. I had just dipped the brush in the paint, and I just got to show how he goes together here. Even surprised me. There was 8 there was 8 pieces. So this here, oh, I probably got a little ahead of myself here. I use this pattern a lot, and it originated from one of Mike Shipley's books, Country Folk, I think it was, and this is Frank without the head, and then a few videos of Lynn Dougherty by putting the arms on separate and stuff. That's why this is what he's involved to do. So anyway, I got him here, and of course, this is the, where's my camera here? Okay, this is my head, and done in the style that Lynn does his cowboy hats.
Mhm. What do you use for the dowels?
That's a 1/8 home hardware dowel.
Yeah.
One thing I do when I dowel, and I dowel most everything. Even on here, I dowel where the feet are going to be. I bore the hole 9/64. Gives me a little wiggle room. So that's part 2. Okay. Then the arm. That's up here, the 3rd part. That will be about there. This guy here, being the South Shore redneck that he is, he had to have a Model 10 Remington pump shotgun. Easier to run through the bush with when the game wardens are after you. They're kind of light and compact. This is part of his day's effort. This will be a Canada goose. Going in that hand there, he's going to be carrying it. And as I say, I had just started to paint when you got in touch with me, and there's the results of my paint. So we'll put that on. And that's what he will be.
Very nice.
Anyway, paint him up with camo and his old green rubber boots, and he'll look like one of the local boys here. There was one thing I was just going to mention. Like I say, I learned a lot of that through following Lynn Dougherty's videos, and he always used a piece of rubber tubing or whatever to clamp uneven surfaces and stuff. And I couldn't find any at the time, and I happened to be down, had to go down and give a sample at the blood clinic, and the young lady come out with these disposable tourniquets, and they are perfect for, like, and you can tie a couple of them together or whatever, but you wrap that around there and that will hold any kind of an irregular shape. So next time you go give blood, why, tell a girl, don't throw it in the garbage, give it to me, I'll take it home.
Hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah, they work. You know, I guess you could even buy them, but it's so much nicer if you can bum them. So
yeah, I know you can buy light surgical tubing that does the same thing, but I mean, that's even better because it's a bit of a flat surface, right?
yeah, and like I say, you can just keep into it. And maybe you guys in Upper Canada with a city every 20 miles, you can buy that, but here in the boondocks, it's not readily available. You use what you got.
Yeah, right. Well, that's great, man.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay.
So I'll jump in there, Mark.
Okay, I have your photos here.
Have you got to some of them?
Yeah, I do. Let me just do a share screen.
Hold it up, but it's there here too. Yeah, that's it. These are the Christmas pickles. And if you read there's all kinds of history about it. Not everybody agrees, but some say it started in Germany, but you hide the pickle on the tree, Christmas tree. The first person to find it gets really good luck for the year, or it's the child gets the chance to open the present first. So we have a craft sale coming up tomorrow, or on Saturday, I should say, a bazaar at the Langparney Village. So these guys are going to be going out there, but all by putting them on the internet. There's a whole bunch of people ordered them now want them from a distance. So the next one is the picture of my funky owls, Christmas funky owl. And that's Doug Linker, I think, is this 5-minute owl he does. And he gave the idea funky to me because as I thought that's a great word, but I had done owls like this, not like this exactly, but some in what I call them is my office owl, or in the case of Christmas, when some relative starts to drive you crazy, you pick up the owl and squeeze it real hard rather than biting your tongue.
Yeah.
This gives you wisdom that way. And then the other major project coming up, as you'll see the next slide, is that this character is my second baseball player. I don't know how many pictures you got of it. The one on the left-hand side is the remake of the head. The guy on the right, the head was far too big for the body. And so I had to customize, but I'm going to use the head for another one. But both have caps that are doweled on and matched to the hair. The fellow on the left-hand side's got a lot of work on it, but his right arm, you can see on the right-hand side, the actual left-hand side, you see the owl, the dowel, I should say, goes into the shoulder. It's not on yet. I want to be able to paint it before I put it actually together, that part, get the glove painted at least.
Mhm.
So the baseball glove's leaning on his knee. And the proportions turned out much better by putting a smaller head on him. The facial features are not on the head yet. But this guy's been a challenge. And the comparison to this, if you remember the first picture that I did, that was done by trying to follow the instructions that he had on his pattern of carving the whole thing without doing pieces. In my case, I carved this one with many pieces, and so it's much easier to carve the facial features, the cap, and all of that. So there's a dowel behind the head that fits into the body.
Very nice.
So that one's coming up pretty good.
So this one here, you haven't done the face yet, or you have done the face?
No, the face is not done yet on that. So you take his cap off and I'll be able to do the face better.
Oh, okay.
Eyes and expression and all that.
One of the things that I learned from Lynn Doughty, again, one of his videos, instead of trying to carve in a beard, what he does is he just carves the face, and then he uses a wash of Payne's gray.
Yeah.
And that leaves kind of like a 5 o'clock shadow. And you can make it as dark as you want, depending how many washes you put on it. But that does a really nice job if you want to just try that for something different.
The original picture has a really scrawly looking beard. He's actually scratched it in or something. And what I did was using about a 1/8 inch, or maybe a little bit smaller than 1/8 bit on the end of my rotor tool, and did his beard that way. And when you paint it, then it looks hairy and fuzzy and really, really a nasty character. So compared to the rest of it, when you have your knife, it's nice and sharp and you are able to carve most of it. So the other thing that happened is that Flex got a hold of me and asked, they're one of our advertisers for the magazine. And they asked me if I would review their carving jack, the brand new ones.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a recipient of a carver jack, and I did most of this character on the left with that carving jack.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
It has many scoops on it, and scorps and different blades, but they're super sharp. They're just like razor blades.
Yeah.
And
Nice,
if you're not
nice.
careful, and the knife is in my right hand, and generally I'm pushing with my thumb. Without knowing it, I go up against the blade, just touching it. At the end of the night, the top of my thumb is not bleeding, but I've taken the top level of skin off piece by piece.
Yeah.
It is sharp.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Those are really nice. Okay. Anybody else have something to share that they're working on?
Sure. Mark, can I jump in?
You bet.
It's Lloyd. Here's another version. I've been doing Christmas decorations. There's another version of the Christmas pickle.
pickle.
Murray showed you one,
Yeah.
his version of it.
Mm-hmm. Just pull them back a little bit. Pull them back a little bit from the camera.
Lloyd, keep talking so you'll appear on the screen.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's one version of the Christmas pickle. I've also been working with different types of wood. This one here is sumac. And sumac has an incredible grain. You can see some of the grain, I think, with it, but it's small. I love working with different types of wood in that. This one here, you're probably familiar with. Probably everybody knows this one. It's olive tree, the olive wood.
Mhm.
It's really incredible stuff. Now here's one you might not know. I'll show you this one. You can see if you can recognize this one at all. Here's the grain. You can see the grain on it.
is that's lace wood?
It's what?
Lace?
Lace?
wood?
No, it's not. It's palm tree. The palm tree wood, something different.
Hmm.
So I thought I'd show you those. That's what I'm working on now.
Where are you getting all the exotic woods?
Well, these ones, no, I pick them up when I'm on vacation. Usually I go out, find some Carvers somewhere and get some wood.
All right. Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, who else would like to show us what you
Well,
are?
so I did some Santa carvings, but I don't have them. Santa ornaments, I don't have them. I gave them away, but I can
Okay.
share the picture. This is just for the colleague of mine who helped me fix my belt sander. So I said he likes them, so I kind of just carved them for him. It was a fun little project.
I saw those on Instagram and I think Facebook, and they're really well done for this. They really look nice.
Thank you.
Fred, did I see you raise a finger?
I could
Yes, hi.
jump in.
How are you doing?
Oh, sorry. Good.
Go ahead, Jack. Go ahead.
Well, you've got the frame now, Fred, so why don't you keep talking?
Okay, that's fine. We're as you know, we did a workshop in the senior center for beginner carvers, and that went very well. So we're running a second one in December. We're changing up a little bit. We're doing Christmas decorations.
Mhm.
So some of the stuff we are actually working on, trying to put some together. You probably remember the Christmas sweater, and we're doing up a bunch. I even have a couple of orders for them for senators' sweaters of all things.
Mhm.
And we also are doing these for those who want to be a little more adventurous. So the 1-day workshop, probably a lot of the same members that did the first workshop are actually coming in, and we're doing a couple of different, you probably recognize these trees, and we just have to paint them up. This one is interesting. It's actually willow. Someone brought in some willow. It's it's a funky piece of wood. It actually carves well, but it can be chippy. And we're doing some Christmas mice, if you will. You know, the eyes and ears and tail. So not a lot of stuff. I've got some other projects on the go, which I'm not really prepared to show, but that's basically it.
That's great, Fred. Thanks. Mike, are you jumping in with something?
Here, there we go. Yeah, well, you sent me an email and maybe we'll show with some photographs in a little bit more detail next time. But just as a sneak preview, I got this guy that's on my bench right now. So just so you know, this is what I'll be talking about next time. We got a group of us in Thunder Bay carving miniature replicas of horses from our carousel, the Chippewa Park Carousel. So this is mine that I'm doing so far, and that's just sort of a hint. And a nod to you guys. You see, we dowel the tails. So anyway, so next time we'll maybe you know, have a little bit more detail. I can send you some photographs and
Yeah, do
little
that.
bit of-
Some photographs.
yeah, because there's a whole series of steps we've been learning, and it's been fun.
Just hold your carving up again a little bit further back towards your face so we can see the whole thing. Oh yeah, that's nice.
And this is no feet. The feet still have to be added yet. For grain changes, you know, I wanted to make sure it was stronger. So it's already several pieces up to this point, but some I glued together, some I didn't. So anyway, that's one. And I've got a couple of horses on the go, and we have about a dozen of us doing this project. So it's been a lot of fun, but nothing to do with caricatures, but you know, but it's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, let's
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
I just finished one,
Go ahead, Bob.
Harvey.
Okay. Just working on a relief, a nativity scene. I got it on the go. You see them?
Looks really nice. You'll have to say something, Bob, so it goes back to you.
They're just, there's four to a group. they're a relief. And this is my second one I got now. I got about 4 more to do, but that's what I'm working on.
That's really nice, Bob. How are they going to be displayed? Is it all going to be on a plaque or just individually like that?
Well, I got them individual, but I might put some on a hinge.
Hmm.
So they can hinge.
That looks really smart. Now, Harvey, were you going to show something?
Yes, I was. I just finished one. Billy goat. You see it?
Yep. You'll have to speak again, Harvey.
Okay, so the billy goat is, I saw it on Pinterest, and I put it on rocks here, and yeah,
Looks good.
okay, thanks.
Anybody else like to show something?
I've got some stuff I'd like to show if I could.
You bet.
So I'm new. I'm Mike from Hamilton area.
Good. Nice to see you, Mike.
Yeah. So I don't know if I can't see this on the screen. So what am I doing wrong?
Do you have the photos of the other guys on the screen?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you should be able to find yourself.
Oh, there I am.
You click on it and it'll get bigger, I think.
Okay. So, you know, that Pinterest is a deadly site to go to because it has all kinds of ideas. So my son asked me if I would carve some items for the staff in his office. So I've got about 6 of these that I've carved. And it's Larry Green's Christmas tree that done by Doug Linker.
Mhm.
And then I thought, well, I'll add some presents on the bottom there. And oddly enough, the base is a Christmas tree stem that I saved from about 2 years ago. And I had it sitting outside and I thought, oh, I'll use that for my base. So I've got about 6 of those I made. And then same with the with carving the Santa heads. I've made about 12 of these for him. So that's my busy time so far. And I've only been carving for about 2 years now, since I retired. And my next project is going to be Doug Hershey and Lancaster, PA Carving Group has a course that he's putting on for Rocky the Raccoon.
Yeah.
So I've signed up for that. So I've got my rough out and I'm just waiting for the Zoom classes to start for that. That's going to be a couple of weekends in December.
Well, that's good. Well, you'll have to tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes because everyone says you should take courses and that to get better. So this is the easiest way for me to take a course without traveling thousands of miles.
Yeah, that's really good.
Just a comment, Mike, to make that with your work that you've shown so far for 2 years of carving, you've done amazing work.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of guys don't get that stage till 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I struggle with the painting though. They look a little chalky when I'm done with them. And I even put Howard's wax and feed or whatever on it to try and bring the gloss up. But they're still kind of flat looking, but I guess maybe that's what I'm after. I don't know. I have to see.
Yeah, I don't think you want it too shiny for sure.
No, yeah. So I started out making these in 3-inch size, and that was more like the one that Doug Linker had on his site. And I got it done, and I had a piece of 4-inch. I did a 4-inch. I went, oh, I like the 4-inch much better. So I sort of did it to myself, and I ended up carving the rest of them the 4-inch length. So
Those
yeah,
look really nice.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to share?
I think Roger is on to our group now.
Yeah.
He got through.
I've got a little carving I'll show if no one's something here. See if that shows up. Yeah, I guess that showed up. Can everybody see that okay? So this is a little elf, and every year I try to do something for my little grandchildren, and I have a grandson now, a 2-month-old grandson named Henry. And so this little elf is holding a little script that has check marks beside Ada and Henry and mom and dad. And some presents, just like Mike did. I have some presents. He's got a bottle of wine there for the parents. It's not all glued on, so I'm being careful here at this point. But so that's my little elf. Okay. Anything else to be shared before we go to the presentations?
Mark?
Yep.
Yeah, I just finished watching Doug Linker's latest one, the Santa, and I've been watching his painting videos over and over because I have issues with painting. I'm not very good at it, and his washes and everything, and the preparation of the oil first. Some of them, it's amazing how they turn out. But if anybody hasn't watched the latest Santa, it's really good.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks. Okay, thanks everybody for participating in that. And what we're going to do is go back to our slide deck here, and we're going to ask Lee to talk a little bit about the work that he's done and the photos that he sent in for us. Lee, you can see here I'm leaving these slides a little bit large, so at least you can see what's coming up or have a sense of what's coming up. And so I'll hand it over to you, Lee.
Okay. So I just got a wood burner recently after the last competition, and I've tried it out on a couple of projects. It actually helps a lot with the painting when they bleed into each other. I had painting issues myself where I would have runs or I couldn't keep a straight line properly. And I found that the wood burner really helps a lot in this sort of situation. Do you want to go to the next slide? Sorry. So yeah, these are a couple of the guys that I've been, so the one on the, with the Christmas tree at the Christmas farm, that was painted before I had my wood burner. And the grumpy looking one, he's painted after I purchased my wood burner. And the lines are a lot better. They're more defined. And it comes out a lot nicer, I find. You want to go next one? There you go. So I also use the body from Frank from Carving Country Folk. And I put them in all sorts of different positions too. And this is just my carving before I start burning it. And I got a new knife, the OCC or OCTT, whatever. I really like it. It's quite nice. There we go. Yeah. So that's just him kind of getting all in position, a couple different side views. And the next one is my wood burner that I bought. This is, it's not really a special wood burner. I just bought is like a $30 one on Amazon. It came with a whole bunch of different tips, some stencils, and you can solder with it. So I've been just experimenting with different tips as I go. And sometimes one tip's better than the other for like if I want to do a straight line, or I've been wood burning in the stubble on their beards. And there's a small little tip that's really good for that, I found. I've never carved out the beard like Murray did with his there. Any questions yet, or just?
So on this particular wood burner, do you have Like this one looks kind of like cylindrical, the bit at the end. Do you have one that's kind of like a razor, like a
Yeah,
sharp one as well? Okay, no, that's great. And does it have a temperature control, Lee?
yeah, it goes from like 200 to 450 or something. And I usually try to keep it around 350, 400 because it actually gives me like it chars really nicely. And depending on how hard I press it or hold it there, I can kind of control the amount that I want. But if it's a little bit less than that, it doesn't quite like burn it properly, I found. But for the $30, it's been really good to me so far. So this is, I'm just going through and just burning in the extra details like the belt loops, the buttons, his name tag on his sweater, on his shirt there, the fly on his jeans, his little pockets. And then on all the seams, I try to go and do just a little dot next to the line. And then that way it kind of acts as the stitching. And it actually adds a whole extra depth I found to it. Like if you do the seam line on the pants and then the stitching next to it, it kind of gives it that, I don't know, it gives me an extra feel to it. Like more, there's like something there, you know?
Just more interest.
Yeah, yeah. And then, yeah, so then this is, I've just kind of completed it, and then the whole back, do the back pockets, the seam on the, on where your butt is. I have a trouble with the shoes. That's, all my shoes kind of just either look like work boots or I have like trouble with where like your laces would be. I would like to get better at that. And I guess maybe that's just more carving and more focused to the, because usually by the time I get to this stage of the carving, I'm kind of anxious to actually get it like painted and bring some life to it. So I tend to skip over the shoes a bit, but yeah. And then, yeah, so then this is his face and his head, and I've done his hat, and his little pom-pom on the back, and I would burn in the eyebrows so that they have that that grading where it starts kind of straight up and down at the center and then kind of goes outwards. Try to do that, and that's all with the wood burner. And then with the teeth, I just go very lightly in between the teeth, so you can see a mark, and it shows up later when I paint, which is kind of nice.
You did a nice job here on the wrinkles too, you know, just a couple little wrinkles where they should be. That looks nice.
Thank you. Yeah. And then like maybe some more, I should probably do some more in like where the elbows are and stuff like that. But these are things that I think about after I've kind of already done it.
Can I make a comment for you, Lee, before you go too far on that? But the fact is that when you follow Mark long enough, you'll find Mark is the detailist master. He gets down to the shoes and he'll spend a week on one shoe, Mark, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
But I think that's the effect Mark has had on me, because I know that feeling you have when you put so many hours into it and you get to that last little bit, you say, I'm nuts. I'm not going to fix it. I'm just let it go. But that's something that when I follow Mark and see what the detail he's put in his carvings, it's made me slow down and look closer and carve better. And using the wood burner is something I do quite often to get the extra detail. And it's just the fine points are important. But the one thing I mentioned about the wood burning, when you're doing the detailing here, that the thing that happens with wood burning is that each kind of wood will have a different kind of temperature it needs. So that softer kind of wood, like a basswood, you've got to really turn the heat down compared to something harder. So it's just a comment on that part.
Lee, I think you
That's
did a really nice job here on the wood burning. Well, one of the things you didn't mention though, and you may have done this or you may not have done it. What, you know, we've talked about how to get rid of like fuzzy sections on the carving. We always invariably do a carving and we're trying to carve into a really tight V or something. We can't get those little fibers cleanly out of that. Wood burner like the one you have with that razor tip on it, that flat tip at a low temperature, just running that along there will burn that wood away. If you have a little fuzzy somewhere that you just can't seem to cut away every time you go to cut it, another fuzzy is produced, just dragging that flat razor straight edge at a low temperature over it will burn it away. It doesn't leave a super black mark that you can't paint over. It just burns that away for you. And you know, it's I find it a helpful thought to use that wood burner to really clean up the carving of any little burrs that you might have. You might want to think about that if you haven't already.
I've noticed that when I am doing the wood burning, that it kind of helps ease it away, especially like between the arms and the body. I always end up having fuzzies in there, and this has kind of cleared it out a bit when I'm like, especially where the elbow changes direction, like from the hand, I always end up getting a bit of like chunky fuzz in there, and this actually cleared it right out when I went over,
Yeah.
which is very nice.
Yeah, and you don't have to really do it at a very high temperature that leaves a black mark that you can't paint over with a wash. It just leaves a little discoloration, but it's easily covered with even a light wash of paint. So yeah, you know, it's just something that everybody should give a try anyway.
Lee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your progression between the two there is amazing. And I used to sell wood burners with my daughter when she had her business, and I only had a basic, and now I have the razor tip $500 version because I traded some of my daughter's company's supplies because she didn't have the company anymore. But you make a good point. Like, if somebody's not going to get into pyrography, which is making pictures with wood burners, I don't see the point in buying a high-end unit. And $30, that's pretty good price. And when you say you have all those tips, you can see the progression in your work. Even the painting is really amazing. I can't wait. I've been getting back to carving, and I can't wait to do this. That's why I get on with you guys to get to get me going. So I'll great work.
Thank you. And then this is just thank you very much, actually. So this is the next stages where I was just adding colors and washes in. So you can see I've just only put on the green and the white in this one, and he kind of looks like a zombie. And then the next one over, I've added the red, and then he gets a little bit more lively each time. And then the final one is I've done all the painting, and yeah. So like, but it helps because it doesn't allow I did light washes where the paint, I mix like it's like two or three drops of the color with about 10 or 12 drops of water, and then I get this nice runny. It'll drip off the brush, and then when I touch it to the wood, it just absorbs in and goes up to the burn line and stops, which gives you that really nice crisp kind of cut there.
Mm-hmm. That looks really good. And experiment with that, Lee. That's what I ended up having to do is, you know, how thin a wash do you really need? You can actually get a fairly thick wash, and still that burn line will stop it from bleeding one color into another. So, you know, play with that, and you'll get a sense of how thick a wash you can get away with.
And then after I did that, I on the last picture, I went back over them and I dry brushed the colors to kind of give it a roundness. Like the green is a little bit darker at the bottom of his cuff than at the edge. Right there, I just dry brush it all around the edges just to give it a second dimension to it, you know, like a more fullness. And I went over the whole carving with the red, the white, the green, anywhere where it was kind of should be curving or coming up into something. I tried to just dry brush it to give it that little extra depth.
Very nice.
Oh, and then this is my base for this carving, and I just wood burned in a simple grid line because it's going to be tiles for the scene. So it's the floor, the tiled floors for the scene, and I just burnt that in. I think it was a piece of I don't know. My buddy at work just gave it to me. It's but I just burned it in nice and hot, so I would have like a good deep groove after. And then that's the toilet. So I just carved the toilet, and that was a tricky carve, because then I was thinking I got to have those little S pipes at the bottom, and how does it wrap around properly? So that was an interesting thing to think of in my head. And then this is the final picture of Mac the maintenance elf at the North Pole, and he's got his mop bucket, a plunger, and he's cleaning the backed up toilet from all the elves.
Now you sent me quite an email with the backstory of Mac here. Are you gonna
Yeah,
fill
I
the other
put it
guys
on my
in a bit? Are you
Yeah,
gonna fill?
there's a whole story about Mac. If you check Instagram or my Facebook page, you'll find it there. And I'm actually thinking I might even write an entire children's book about it, and then instead of illustrations, do little wood carving scenes like diorama style, and then I could make Mac doing each thing in the illustration, and then have the yeah. So I was thinking I might do that. So I think that'd be a fun
Well,
project.
when Disney picks that up, make sure you get us all entrance tickets to the park, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, any questions for Lee? That was really well done, Lee. Any questions for Lee before we go on?
I just want to add, I like the shoes. They look like slippers to me. They look comfortable. That's what I wear all day long. So anyways, that's all.
Thanks very much, Lee.
No problem.
Okay, Baz, we're going to talk a little bit about your process for clay sculpting, and these should be in the order that you sent them to me.
Great. Hi, everyone. After the carving competition, I was surfing the web, and I came across this picture, and it was very interesting. And it's from a guy by the name of Vitaly Konikoman. And so he's selling that picture on the web, but it inspired me for a subject. So I decided to have a carving that's going to be called Duet, and it's going to be the one-man band with a dog that's going to be howling beside him. So that's where the Duet title comes from. And in the background, I'll have a street light, and it'd be a cobblestone thing. So when I look at it, it's a pretty complex carving. And I decided that I really want to do a good carving with it. And being a chip carver for 25 years and teaching it for more than 22, I see two-dimensional. I don't see three-dimension. And I said to myself, I got to be able to do something. And going over some of the early videos from our Zoom meetings, Mark talked about clay modeling and using clay. So that's what I decided to do, is to go to the clay and see if I could get a better sense of the three-dimensional thing. And by God, it really helped. So I'm progressing in that. It's not all done. So what I'm presenting tonight is where I am with the process. And I think it's really a worthwhile process. So we'll go to the next slide. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to build an armature for your clay. So what I'm presenting on the side is a picture of the actual clay that I'm using. It's called clean clay, and it's like an oily based kind of clay. It doesn't dry. It cannot become hard. You cannot cook it or anything like that. But I had this clay around in my studio for many years and never used it. And I bought it years ago at Wallix. And I went on the web and you cannot get it anymore. This clay is eBay, but it's very expensive and things. So there's other options. And so there's Sculpty is another one that you can get now. And Mark actually sent on some of the Zoom, he sent us, he showed us what he's using. It's a water-based clay, you gotta keep wet. So there's different choice. So the thing is that I decided to build an armature, and I decided to use aluminum wire instead of copper. And the reason to use aluminum wire is the aluminum doesn't give it, when you give it a form, it doesn't spring back as much. The copper apparently springs a bit more, but I had really good results with the aluminum. And I just went to Canadian Tire and I bought this for $8.99, a 50 feet roll. And so I end up using, at first I did 4-strand, and I used the drill. You'll see in the last, on the far right side, it's my drill, and I put the 3-strand together. I put them in the vise, and the other 3 strands in the actual jaw of the drill. And I just turn the drill slowly, and it all twists nicely like a cable on itself. So I learned, and the reason I say I learned is because tonight what I'm presenting is my first armature that I did in my clay model. I didn't like it. I went back and I redid it, and I'm continuing on that process. But we'll go to the next slides and we'll talk about that. So after you do the armature, what I did to actually come up with the armature, I did some research, and Joe Yu from the Caricature Carver of America had a presentation that he did a while ago I think it was in the spring on armature and so on. And so it was a really, the way he uses it, he used copper wire, and he uses some metal ring with you put a screw to tight wires together. I didn't have that around, so I used some plastic tubing that I use with epoxy, and I used his approach. So, and one of his suggestion is to do several holes on your board so that you can put the feet at a different angle and so on. And that's what we see in the middle picture, that the body's actually twisted. That's the nice thing about the armature. Before you even start to put the clay on, you just twist the body. And that's what I did on that one. And then for my first armature, I decided to put foil. I went to the dollar store and just bought a roll of foil. Did not go in the kitchen and use my wife's foil because I would have got in trouble for that one. So the dollar store was good enough for foil. So I put that so I would use less clay on my model. And for the head, I actually carved a piece of basswood to give about the size of the head so that I could actually put clay all around the head. It would reduce the amount of clay. So I carved sort of a shape of the neck and the head, rough shape. So that's what I did for that one. That was my first armature. We'll go to the next slide. And then it's a great process to set the proportions. So what I did is I started to put the clay on. It goes really easy. And in some instances, I roll the clay and I would pile it up and build it up. And for the body, I put a big amount and I would squeeze it in my hands and so on. And it worked really great for the musical instruments. I was able to build a big bass drum, and that would give me the proportion that it would be behind his back. But at one point I started looking at it and I was not satisfied. When you look at the right side, the head was a bit too big, the body was too tall, his legs were too short, and it looked weird. To me, it didn't look good. So I realized that at that point in time, right off the beginning, my armature was wrong. So I did not have the right proportions for the body. So I was back to the shop and to go over building a new armature. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the good news is this kind of clay that I'm using is all reusable. So I just peeled it off and it's really reusable. The other thing that I discovered in doing that is that I had enough clay that I didn't really need the foil behind, because what's happening when you start removing the clay, little pieces of foil get stuck into the clay and it takes a while to remove. So from the next armature, I'm not using that at all. So here's the next picture. Here's my second armature that I created. So I went on the web and I took a look at the right anatomy. And there's a lot of sources and so on. And I saw this picture and I made myself some marks and so on it and some size, because I wanted my carving to be a certain height and so on. And it's so many faces, height. And what I did is then I started to, with the new strand, 6 strand, I started bending the actual aluminum wire in accordance to the actual diagram right on it, so that I would have the right proportion. And in this one, I did not use the Joe Hughes approach. He uses only 2 armature strand. He uses only 2 aluminum thing. In this case, I went with 3, where I can separate the shoulder and the legs and the body and so on. So I used 3 strands. And if you look on the right side, there's the head, the circle at the top that goes all the way to the bottom of the legs. That's 1 aluminum strand. The shoulders and the arms are another one, and the leg is a 3rd one. And I discovered while I was doing this, I thought of something. Oh, how can I hold them together a bit better? And I discovered that using those shrink wrap wires, that sometimes when you do some repairs on wiring, you can just buy them at Canadian Tire. You just put it's a rubber shrink wrap that you just use a heater on, and it just shrinks. And that was very strong, and it kept all my armature together. So that's what I used. And then I glued my armature in the holes with some crazy glue. When I was deciding where I wanted the legs to be and so on, then I glued it. So it's really solid to start the work on my actual second model. So the new clay model is, we see it right here in front. So the proportion of the body are now working. It looks better. I still have a lot of carving to do on the actual clay. The armature is a lot stronger body, and it's trying to give motion, and I'm trying to give motion. The feet is further ahead, it's in the air. And if you look at the back, it gives a better posture in the arms and so on. So then we'll take a look at the next thing. So I started to work on head, and I was back to the internet because I had to change the approach for the modeling. The head did not work. It was not realistic facial feature, even though it is a caricature, but you still need it still needs to look natural, even though you might have a bigger nose, bigger ears, it's still got to look good. So it was difficult to model my actual face on the full body. So, and we'll come back to the next slide in a few minutes, but I went to the web, look at proportion of the face, and then I came across a series of YouTube videos. And for me, there's no issue. They're French from France, but for me, I can understand what she's saying, but they're really well done. And she goes step by step about doing the face and so on, and it's very useful. And I've been following that to try to do it. And the next slide, I want to show you the next slide. So in this case, what I did is I put on a Lazy Susan, strictly a piece of wood with just a head. so that I can actually carve it separate from the actual other carving. If you take a look at the picture on the actual right side, you see that the head is still on the other subject, but I started a new head here. And so what I did, the first thing you do is you make an egg shape. I cut it in half, the little picture at the bottom, I cut it in half and I stick it to the piece, and then I mold around the neck. So it gives, that's was part of the video that shows the step-by-step, and that's what I'm following right now. And we'll see the next picture is my last slide. So if you can take a look, I'm getting better results. If you take a look at the profile now, the neck is in the back and it's sliding backwards. And then you actually separate the various portions of the face to get started on the nose and so on. So I learned a lot from this. It's totally enjoyable. It's relaxing and it allows me to take my time. I'm always trying to go fast to try to do it. And it's really, the nice thing about the clay is I can come downstairs in the studio and work a few hours and get away from it and come back to it the next day and just continue. And sometimes it's good because the next day you see something that's different. And it also allows me to see that three-dimensional proportion, the 3D side of things I was not able to see before. And so, but what I have to be careful of is to get to a certain point where I can actually go to wood. So there's so much detail you put, but then you got to stop it and then go to the next. So the next step would be to finish the head, maybe do an actual clay model of the dog, and then I need to take pictures and actually put it to wood to go to the bandsaw. But I'm getting ready with this project. The idea is to take part of the winter. I'm going down to Florida for the winter, and I want to finish before I leave for Florida. And at December, I want to have my wood out so I can actually carve into this project. So that's my talk on the actual clay modeling. Any questions?
Hey, any questions or comments for Baz? That was really good, Baz. Thanks very much. Really appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, Furtis, we're gonna turn over to you now. We're gonna talk about sharpening and stropping. I hope you don't mind, Furtis, but I just included this picture that we've used before as a group, just to point out that when we're sharpening a knife or stropping a knife, we're really talking about that bright edge along the edge of the knife. We're not really talking about from here to here, that secondary bevel. We're talking about that bright edge that you're trying to get super surgically sharp, okay? So, Furtis, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everybody. So recently, this is one of my go-to knives that I kind of use. This is an OCC tool, 2¼ inch oak handle knife, and I use this all the time. So recently, I noticed that this knife has become kind of dull. I regularly strop it. I use I've ordered like one of in the past a heavy strop, so I use that. It's a manual strop, but I've been very like diligently stropping it to make sure it doesn't get dull. But still, after a year and a half of usage, I noticed that it was becoming dull. And also, about 1/4 inch from the top, I had noticed that there was a very minor nick in it. So I wanted to learn how to sharpen it. So doing a lot of online research and stuff. I was communicating back and forth with Mark as well, getting his advice, and finally I decided to go with these die sharp diamond stones. So I got these 2 stones. On the left hand side, the stone that you see, it's a fine stone, And on the right-hand side, it's a extra fine stone. This is how it comes in the package. The next slide, you will see the actual stones, how they look. So the size of these stones is 3-inch wide by 10 inches long. The grit on these, the fine stone is 600 grit, and on the extra fine, it's 1200 grit. So what I did was this knife that I was having a problem with, I just kind of stroked it back and forth. I didn't, what I was doing was kind of just doing it equally on both sides. So probably I started with about 20 strokes on each side. I kind of did it same way I would strop on a leather strop. And I did 20 on the fine and then on each side, and then I moved on to the extra fine. And what I was doing is that after kind of stroking back and forth on these stones, I was kind of looking at the edge and seeing how it looks. I was kind of noticing that it was removing some iron, the metal. These stones can be used either wet or dry. So I used it dry, and I was kind of also, before putting it on a leather strop, I was kind of carving it a little bit to check the sharpness. And I did notice that the nick was kind of almost gone. So what I did was, the next slide, you will see that I bought a belt sander to put a leather belt on it. So this is a King Canada 1x30-inch belt sander that I bought. Its model is KC702C. Basically, it's a 5-inch belt disc sander also. So the other side, you can see that there's a disc sander. But when I originally bought this belt sander, I wanted to give it a try. So I didn't want to put my the OCC tool knife on it. So what I did was I had some kitchen knives. So I put an 800 grit 1x30-inch belt, sanding belt on it. The machine came with an 80 grit belt. So I took that out and I put the 1x30-inch belt on it. And I kind of sharpened some knives. But when I was doing that, I noticed that the belt was kind of shifting about 1/8 inch on the left-hand side. So I said probably it's something, and I've tried, there's a, on the next slide, you will see that there's a, on the back, you can see there's a tracking, that's where it is, there's a tracking, and that what that tracking does is that if you kind of move it left and right, the belt would move back and forth. So it kind of makes sure that the belt stays on the wheels. If you go to the next slide, Mark, please. So these are the 3 wheels. Like one is attached to the motor, and the other two wheels are kind of also keeping the whole thing together. So what happened was that as soon as I put the leather belt on it, the belt was okay for the first couple of knives, but then it started slipping off. And I tried to adjust the tracking, but that did not help. And the way the tracking was, it was pretty tight. And even with moving it back and forth, it was not helping much. And I tried a lot, couldn't figure it out. I was also talking to Mike and Mark, and he gave me some advice, and I tried that. But one of the things that Mark also advised that leave the 800 grit sanding belt on and put the leather belt on top of that. That would kind of hold it. And I tried that, but the problem was that the leather belt is pretty thick. So with the sanding belt and on top the leather belt, there was not enough room on the top wheel, and it was hitting kind of the casing of this belt sander, so it didn't work. So what I did was I reached out to a colleague of mine, and he is a pretty hands-on guy, and he said, "Okay, bring it in, and I'll have a look." And he was able to fix it, make some adjustments. I'll talk about that in a moment. But once he made some adjustments to the belt sander, I did put the leather belt on, and it works perfectly fine. So what I also did was I thought that maybe the belt became loose. So I went back to Lee Valley, and because that's from there I bought the belt from. And I requested them, and they said, "Yeah, we can change it for you." So they replaced the belt for me. And even after putting the new belt, that was not helping me. But once it got fixed, my colleague fixed it. It works really nice. So after going stroking the knife on the stones, and I was able to strop it, and the sharpness came back really, really nicely, and I'm very happy with that. The only thing about this belt sander is that the rotation is towards you, so you have to kind of be careful on when you are how you put the knife on it. I've seen Gene Messer also on his YouTube video. What he does is he kind of flips the belt sander so the rotation kind of goes the other way. So you can do it that way as well. So talking about the modifications, so what I also noticed is that the wheel that's attached to the shaft of the motor, it was about 1/4 inch outside than the other top two wheels. They were not aligned properly. So when the machine was kind of running, the belt sander was running, it was pulling the belt out. So what my colleague had to do is he had to remove this wheel, and he had to kind of grind the backside of the wheel to make it a little bit thinner so the wheel can get pushed inside to align with the top two wheels. The other thing he also did was there's a spacer where the shaft is coming from the motor and going into the wheel. So he had to kind of grind off a 1/4 inch of that spacer, so then that bottom wheel can be pushed in. The other wheel, which is attached to the tracking, that wheel, yeah, this one, there was a original pin on it, and that kind of pin was very flimsy. So it was kind of not keeping the wheel straight, and it was kind of wobbling back and forth. So he had to kind of put a more thicker pin on it to kind of stable the wheel when it was rotating. Mark, if you please go to the next slide. Yeah, so this tracking that you see over here, we had to also kind of make there's this long bolt that's extending through these two pieces of metal. He had to make the hole a little bit bigger because there was a lot of tension on it, and even with rotating this screw, or it was not giving much movement, so he had to make some adjustments to that. Once that was done, it just works perfectly now, and I'm very happy with the results. So, it came out really well.
That's great, Fergus. So I guess a couple things come to my mind. When you think about the stones that you used, you went from a 1200 stone to the leather strop with probably a 30,000 grit polishing compound on the leather strop, and you had really good success with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Very, it really brought back the shine on the knife, and there was, even like when I was stroking back and forth, I could see a little bit of nick was still there, but once I put it on the leather strop, it kind of completely took it out, and the knife was extremely sharp. Like I'd never seen that, and I could literally shave very thin, pieces of basswood with that. These stones, I would like to add that Lee Valley, they are not cheap stones. They are each one was like $92. in addition to these two stones, Lee Valley also sells the coarse, the extra coarse, and then there's an additional one that's an extra fine. So the coarse one is the extra coarse is 120 grit. The extra coarse is 220 grit, and the extra fine is 8,000 grit. But I just got these two because I don't think I need the other ones. I've seen Roger Stegall. He also has a YouTube video where he kind of just uses the extra fine just to tune his knives, and then he doesn't have a leather stropping, but he has a buffing wheel, and he kind of uses the buffing wheel to just sharpen his knife.
That's great, Chris. And so one of the things that I've always felt is that you probably have to go up to about a 4,000 grit before you go to a polishing compound to get a really nice edge. So it's really great to hear that you had real good success from a 1,200 grit to the leather strop with a compound on it. So I think that's a new piece of information that's really worthwhile for everybody on that.
Yeah. And I think I also have one last slide, Mark, there.
No, I think that was it. I put
Oh,
this slide in. You had just mentioned the buffing wheel. I think.
Oh, yes.
Az, did you send this picture to me?
Yes, I'm the one that sent it to you.
Yeah.
So that's the system that I built in my shop. So it's a mandrel with just a regular motor, but the trick with that one is there's a large wheel on the shaft and a smaller wheel on the motor, so that I reduced my speed to 1,000 RPM, and the wheel turns away from me. So, and on one side I have a medium felt wheel, and on the left side and on the right side is a two cotton wheels that are put together, and I put the green compound, and it works like a charm.
Yep.
It's great.
No, Furtis, when you chose the King Canada, I know one of the selling features that we both thought was a good one was the speed of the particular unit was a lot slower than some of the other belt sanders, right?
Yeah. So this one, they don't give the RPM, but they do give the for the belt. They say it's 2,000 feet per minute. So I think you calculated it. I think it was 1,700 or something like that RPMs.
Yeah, that's right. And so just by calculating with the RPM and the size of the pulley, the one that I have is the belt sander is a rigid belt sander, and I think it was up around 3,000 feet per minute. So, I felt the 2,000 feet per minute was a significant improvement from a honing standpoint.
Correct. And so I found that it was not fast enough, and a few strokes on this really helped. Also, if somebody wants to, they can also go for the leather, this sharpening system. There's one that's sold by Chipping Away, but it's a bit pricey. It's like $350. With tax, it comes out to about $400. But I've seen Doug Linker recommend that, like he's shown it in his video, and also Gene Messer highly talks about that in his videos. But Gene also shows this one, which is he has a Harbor Freight, or that's the make that they can get in US. It's much cheaper, like $50 or $60 belt sander, and he also recommends that for people who don't want to spend like $400 for so there are different options available.
Furtis, can I ask you a question? I think, Mark, it's the third slide on the left side there with the two pieces of, the next one up. Yeah. How much are those pieces of metal?
So each stone is $92.
Each is 19?
92.
$92 for each one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus tax.
Okay.
Yeah, these are not cheap stones, but I said, okay, I'm getting something I wanted to buy, like invest something that would last me for a long time. And since Roger Stegall also uses it in his videos, I said that it should be good ones, and so I went for it.
That they should last forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions for Furtis? Thank you, Furtis. That was really interesting. Maybe just as a last comment that I'll make is, one of the things that Furtis and I have talked about, and I think we've talked about it as a group too, is to try to avoid sharpening your knives. And so Furtis obviously had to sharpen it because he found a nick in the knife. But, ideally, you never go beyond using the leather strop. And if you have to go beyond the leather strop, you start with this one, the 1200 grit, or if you have 4000 grit, and try to keep away from anything coarser than that, unless you have a real problem that you have to remove a lot of metal. But really good review, everyone. Thank you. And that's about the end of our evening, unless anybody has anything else they'd like to add before we sign off.
It was an excellent presentation, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Sorry, I cut someone off.
I just said thanks for having us.
You guys did a great job of preparing for that. I really appreciate it. Murray and I are going to try something a little bit different here. We're both recording this Zoom call tonight. Murray's going to put the full Zoom call, as he always does, on YouTube under Murray's Lincoln's YouTube channel. I've created a True North Caricature Carvers channel as well on YouTube, and I'm going to take portions of the video and put it on that. So Murray's going to put the full hour-and-a-half video up. I'm going to put kind of 15-minute snippets. So Furtis's 15-minute snippet, Lee's snippet, Baz's snippet, and just have them as standalone videos that people can quickly view, and that'll be on the True North Caricature Carvers YouTube channel. So I'll send out an email when we get around to doing those things so that you get a chance to take a look at them, okay?
And Mark is going to remember to stop recording now before you leave the meeting.
Okay, there.
It says you lose all that you have recorded.
Done. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, thank you, everyone. Get all your Christmas carvings prepped between now and the next session. And if you haven't wrapped them up by then,